You define everything that's wrong with this place.
Ben Shapiro is an intelligent person, but like Jordan Peterson, his understanding and critiques of socialism simply fall flat, and the format he chooses is extremely intellectually dishonest. Live debates are some of the worst. First of all, there are absolutely zero sources cited.
It's pure ideology.
Just the opinion of the two speakers. Therefore, a conclusion is never reached. The only way to change someone's mind is through factual evidence that you can empirically back up. You can't just tell someone something enough times and then they'll start to believe it. Number 2, there is absolutely zero fact-checking going on during these debates. It is simply Ben Shapiro and whatever college liberal he's debating. The reason why I don't watch Ben Shapiro's live Q&As, but I watch response videos, is because in the description of these response videos are always sources, and I can check these sources and I can back them up, whether primary or secondary. And that is simply not the case when it comes to Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson or any of these live Q&A debaters. Which is why I have chosen to make not a typical reaction video as I normally do on my channel, but instead a response video. In the description of this video will be sources that are cited respectively. If anyone has any critiques of this video, I would encourage you to do the same.
What is so immoral about believing that a worker is entitled to the full value of their labor, especially given that such enterprises organized in such a way have been shown to be more effective?
I think we have to separate out a couple of strands there. Number one, if you're going to talk about the efficacy of workers owning the means of production, are we talking about the government owning the means of production, or are we talking about workers owning the means of production?
Ben Shapiro's first point is one that is completely moot by the fact that the government is not an autonomous being. Ben Shapiro applies that I can just go up to Capitol Hill and knock on Mr. Government's door, and then he'll step outside, shake my hand, and own the means of production. And as he says later, it'll quote-unquote blow. A dictatorship of the proletariat worker state is nothing like liberal bourgeois democracy. And although Ben doesn't really define what blow means, I'll tell you something. I don't really think blowing is being the second fastest growing economy in the world. It's interesting how a country like Cuba, which has suffered not only tons of embargoes, but also an invasion, can produce the most doctors out of all the countries in the world, both native and foreign. Well, it is the story of Cuba, where they managed to overthrow a US-backed dictator, stop a full-on United States invasion, and sustain themselves. GDP per capita substantially grew under Castro compared to Podesta. Unemployment in Cuba actually continues to be much lower than that of the United States, and I wouldn't call record high literacy rates blowing. The story of Venezuela is much farce. Venezuela is and remains a capitalist economy, but that's another video for another day.
The democratic socialist countries of Norway.
The Scandinavian countries are not democratic socialists, they are social democrats.
Norway is an exception in which the government owns a lot of stock in various companies, but those companies are run along free enterprise lines.
By that logic, every country in the world right now is socialist, and every country that's ever existed is socialist.
They're not run along redistributionist lines, actually.
Socialists are concerned with production, not necessarily distribution. And this is the problem with Ben Shapiro debating a bunch of fucking college liberals. They think the Scandinavian countries are socialist. I remember I called the Scandinavian countries socialist when I was in elementary school.
If you're talking about, workers owning a business together, I am a worker at my company. I own my business with another person who owns the company with me.
Do you own capital, and do you employ wage labor to work on that capital to sell commodities? If you do, you're a capitalist. If you do not, then you are not a capitalist.
And a couple of investors. The investors have sunk their labor.
The investors sink capital in the form of money, not labor. Wage laborers give the labor, not investors. You don't get investors on the factory lines working as hard as they can. And no, that capital is not a result of their labor. It's a result of the labor of others being exploited for profit, to which they keep in their own pockets.
Is Bill Gates not a worker at his own company? He invented the company.
Are you implying that Jeff Bezos magically worked over 200,000 times harder than the average minimum wage employee?
I'm also wondering how the worker is not owning his own labor when he freely chooses to alienate that labor in exchange for pay.
The worker has nothing. The only thing he has is his labor, and he offers that labor to the capitalist in exchange for a wage, which is inherently exploitation because he's getting paid less than what he produced.
Right? You can't go major in something useless and then come to me and say, I want $100,000 a year for my useless major so I can dig holes in the ground, right? We all recognize that's stupid. But
And did Karl Marx say that you could do a useless job and get paid $100,000 a year for it? No, he did not. Actually, if you were to read the first volume, first section, first chapter of Capital, he literally says against this.
the labor value of theory, which is, I mean, the value labor of theory. It's been a long day.
Do you mean the labor theory of value, you absolute dolt?
The labor theory of value, which is that the amount of work you put into something dictates the value of the thing, is a bunch of crap.
I don't understand how people like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro walk around being this intellectually dishonest. That's the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard. Yes, the labor theory of value says, if I slap my hands together, I'll be a billionaire. That's what it says. Checkmate, commie.
If I spend all day making mud pies outside,
Communism is when you make mud pies and get paid $5 million for it.
that's an awful lot of work. It's also completely useless. The way that you actually determine the value of work is by trading it for somebody else's work.
The way you determine the value of work is if it's socially useful or not if you're willing to trade it with someone. If I'm alone on a desert island, I can work by myself and create use values. But are those use values suddenly worthless just because I can't trade my labor with other people? It doesn't make any sense.
So if you're asking whether I'm okay with, for example, private sector unions, workers get together and they go to the owner and they say, we want more of the profit margin. Sure, as long as you're not kneecapping somebody.
What about business owners shooting union leaders on the street? Do you approve of that?
We need to be very specific. When you talk about the ownership of the means of production, are you talking about my version, because that's called capitalism, or are you talking about where the government owns the means of production or crams down on voluntary associations' rules as to the means of production?
Capitalism is when private owners own the means of production. Socialism is when workers own the means of production.
I'm talking about neither. I reject state socialism. The term given to worker cooperatives, the most prominent example, the Mondragon Corporation in Spain.
I mean, is it a voluntary association? Is there any cram down happening?
No, there's not.
Then good, it's capitalist.
The newest hot take from Comrade Shapiro. Capitalism is when the workers own the means of production.
That's free market
That's
by
simply
nature.
not what capitalism.
I like how he just says that's free market, financial. Like, what are you even fucking saying, dude? What about the free market? The free market has absolutely nothing to do with how goods are produced. Markets are about exchange, not producing shit. I mean, you can have socialism with a market. It doesn't make them mutually exclusive. Generally, though, socialists want central planning.
As a
shitty the current
derogatory, it's a
system
derogatory term, right? I should actually use the term free market. It's a free market system.
Capitalism is a derogatory term. Maybe we should, I don't know, silence the free speechers who say the word capitalism and replace it with happy good times. The market has absolutely nothing to do with who owns the means of production. You could literally have everyone owning the means of production and still have a market, or you can have a planned capitalist economy. It does not matter.
When voluntarism is associated with it.
Right, so that assumes that markets are unique to capitalism, that capitalism has the sole claim on markets, when no one has...
You're not arguing for anything that is non-violent, that violates any single prescription of free markets that I've laid forth. So I'm wondering.
So basically, capitalism is when you volunteer for something, and socialism is when you're forced into something or coerced.
If we're just arguing over you're saying that my free market terminology is actually socialist terminology, then we're arguing over semantics. What is it about what I have said that you actually don't like? I'm still wondering.
All right, well, what I don't like about what you've said, I believe it's intellectually dishonest for you to lay unequivocal claim for capitalism on the market system and simply say, all right, that's it. I believe that's intellectually dishonest. I think it misrepresents what socialism
There's not
is.
a single theorist of markets who would disagree with a single proposition that I've laid at the roots of what markets are.
This is the problem with Ben Shapiro. He starts going off on a fucking tangent about the most random shit, and I could see the confusion in this college kid's eyes. He's like, dude, we're talking about production. We're talking about the workers owning the means of production. Why are you going on about free markets? Haven't you ever heard of Tito? Just look at the absolute desperation in his eyes as he stares at Ben Shapiro, who gives mud pie arguments and says that the free market is capitalism.
I'm having trouble. Basically, what you're saying to me is that I say a bunch of things on free market. You say, no, they're socialist.
Like, haven't you ever heard of Tito? Am I just gonna have to repeat the word Tito 50 million times throughout this entire video? Maybe it's bizarre because you're not fucking well read and you've never heard of Yugoslavia. I like how Ben implies that markets and socialism are just like the most mutually exclusive things in the world, like anarcho-fascism or some shit. Like, come on, dude. One is a system of production, one is a system of distribution.
I know, I'm not asking about a million strains of socialism. I'm asking,
Comrade Shapiro was anti-revisionism.
if all that putting the pencil together requires is basic use of your prefrontal cortex, then yes, your labor is alienable at lower rates than if you are a doctor.
He's not arguing that pencil creators should get paid $1 million an hour. This is ridiculous. He's arguing that labor is the source of all value.
That's not the fault of the person who owns the machinery.
But if you didn't have workers like me and your pencil factory, and you were just one man.
But I do. I have millions of people who are willing to do that voluntarily for me.
And
Really, the CEO of Nike who fucking sits on his ass while his laborers in Indonesia, who by the way are 11-year-old illiterate girls, is not at fault? Oh no, according to Ben Shapiro, he's actually the victim.
If you're talking about money, money does not grow from the ground. Money only has value because it was traded for labor at one point, or the products of labor.
Excuse me, Shapiro, comma Ben. What does this have to do with his point? He's saying that labor creates all value, and then he's saying, well, money is a commodity, so therefore workers should not own the means of production. Oh no, he's actually saying that workers should own the means of production, but as long as we have a free market, it'll stay capitalist. That's pretty much his thesis here. So I guess Ben Shapiro is a Titoist.
You have still failed. If what you're talking about is a system of voluntarism, you still have not named any area in which we disagree, and yet you're telling me that you're a socialist and I'm a free marketer. So one of us has got this wildly wrong, and I'm pretty sure it's not me. I mean, is it a voluntary association? Is there any cram down happening?
no, there's not.
Then good, it's capitalist.